Warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the 37th weekly meeting of KMA for this KMA year. Before we start, I would request Mr. Nivedit, our co-chair of the KMA Young Minds, to kindly come forward for the prayer.
We come together today with open hearts and minds. May we find clarity in our discussions and strength in our unity. Let us inspire one another and foster a spirit of collaboration and respect. May our actions reflect our dedication to excellence and our commitment to uplifting our community. As we work together, may we encourage creativity and innovation, embracing the potential within each of us. God, we thank you for this opportunity to connect with each other and help us to grow together. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now let's begin the program. Now I welcome Mr. Algiers Khalid, Vice President of KMA, for the welcome address and introduction of the speaker.
Esteemed Chief Guest, Mr. Mohammed Anzy, Vice President and Managing Director, Guidewire India, our President, Vivek Nuran, Honorary Secretary, Dr. Anil Joseph, past Presidents, Distinguished Managing Committee members, KMA, Student Chapter members, Young Minds, and esteemed guests. Good evening to everyone. A warm welcome to the 37th program of KMA this year. We have consistently strived to bring thought-provoking topics in business, management, and leadership, ensuring that our members stay ahead of emerging trends. We also make conscious effort to invite speakers from diverse industries and backgrounds to offer fresh perspectives, because after all, variety is the spice of life. Today's session is no exception as we explore a thought-provoking subject that blends technology, management, and leadership. One that has sparked curiosity and debate worldwide. Judging by the interest generated by our teaser flyer, I see many new faces, especially young minds. A hearty welcome to all of you. A few months ago, in a casual conversation, I came across the buzzword transhumanism, a term I had never heard before. Curiously, I asked a tech-savvy friend of mine, and he explained it in simple Malayalam. രോഗമില്ലാത്ത, വൈകല്യങ്ങളില്ലാത്ത, വാർദ്ധക്യങ്ങളില്ലാത്ത, മരണങ്ങളില്ലാത്ത മനുഷ്യരുടെ ലോകം ട്രാൻസ്ഹ്യൂമനിസം എൻവിഷൻ ചെയ്യുന്നു. തലചുറ്റിപ്പോയി അത് കേട്ടപ്പോൾ. Intrigued, I turned to Google and I was fascinated by the idea how technology can help humans evolve beyond current physical and cognitive limitations. According to Google, transhumanism envisions a future where human beings transcend their physical and mental limitations through advancements in science and technology. It is a concept that challenges our understanding of humanity, leadership, and management in profound ways. This led me to think, how will transhumanism impact leadership and management? And who better to guide us on this than our distinguished chief guest today, Mr. Mohammed Anzy S., a visionary leader and a technologist at the forefront of innovation for 2 decades. A a distinguished alumnus of NIT and IIM, Mr. Anzy began his journey as a software engineer at Tech Mahindra before joining SAP. At SAP, he quickly rose through the ranks from development specialist to product architect, then to vice president strategy and change. In 2016, as India was gearing up to become a global startup hub, Mr. Anzy was entrusted with launching SAP's startup accelerator program called SAP Startup Studio. His impact at SAP continued to grow, leading him to the vice president and head of engineering in 2019, and later as chief operating officer of SAP's largest R&D center outside of Germany. When he joined the startup studio, there were no startups there, and when he left in 2024, there were 67 startups basically innovating IP, and out of which 3 were unicorns. And SAP business in India grew from $80 million to $8.5 billion in India under his leadership. Then in 2024, January, after illustrious career in SAP, Mr. Anzy took up the new challenge to lead Guidewire India as Managing Director and Vice President Engineering. When he joined Guidewire India, which is a Silicon-based company, the stock of that company was $80 per share, and in a matter of 1 year, it has become $200 per share. Guidewire, headquartered in Silicon Valley, is transforming the global insurance industry through cutting-edge technology. Guidewire takes care of 70% of insurance business in the United States of America. So you know what the gravity of business he's handling. I first met Mr. Anzy when he visited my house in December 2022 to pay homage to my late father. Even then, I invited him to address KMA at an appropriate time. When the topic of transhumanism came up, I immediately thought about him and reached out. He graciously accepted our invitation, and we are truly honored to have him with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending warm welcome to Mr. Mohammed Anzy S with a round of applause. A few months ago, my son-in-law, Mr. Axel Guillaume, addressed KMA on Paris Olympics. And today, we have another son-in-law of my family, Mr. Anzy, who is married to my niece by relation. With today's session, I hope I won't be accused of turning KMA into a family gathering. But in my defense, I couldn't find a more qualified speaker with proven track record in innovation, management, and leadership to address this buzzword, transhumanism. We are all eagerly waiting to hear Mr. Anzy's thoughts on how transhumanism will shape the future of management and leadership. On that note, let me now invite our President, Mr. Bibu Punaran, to share his thoughts. Over to Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Now I welcome Mr. Bibu B. Punura, President KMA, to give the presidential address.
Chief guest of the day, Mr. Mohammed Anzy, Program Committee Chair and Vice President, Mr. Khalid, Honorary Secretary, Dr. Anil Joseph, managing committee members, dear KMA members, dear student members, dear YM members. Once again, a warm good evening, and as I just announced, this is our 37th program for this year. I think we can forgive Mr. Algiers for bringing his family again, because this is a subject I don't think everybody could handle. And we have one of the best, I mean, we just heard about who Mr. Anzy is, and whom else can we get a better speaker on the subject. Now, this particular topic of transhumanism is completely Greek to me, and I had confessed that to Mr. Anzy as he came into. But then, with the little reading that I got, all I can say is that transhumanism is nothing but augmenting our lives, the real humans, to have a better life tomorrow with both physically, mentally, with the help of newer technologies. I hope I'm not wrong. Okay, but then this brings me to some interesting small things that have happened, or you were just talking about your son-in-law, something that happened in my daughter's house about a couple of months back. There is this robo that is used for cleaning, and this was left on, and the family had gone out. So, and there were two maids there. They didn't know how to get this back into the dog, and for them, you know, there's some name and all you give to these kind of robos. So they called that particular name, and then told it to go. It was not going. Finally, these maids thought, you know, they could feed biscuits to this particular thing, and they put biscuits all around, thinking that it will go back into the dog. So these are things that, you know, people get confused. What I'm saying is, this really happened, and, you know, people get confused. But again, I was amused by this, or I think many here must have seen this movie called Android Kunjapan. Okay. It's a thought-provoking movie, because, you know, it is actually, I think that's probably what transhumanism is all about. I think you will explain that better. In the sense, what particular person he cannot let his son go anywhere else, because he wants his son to be there with him all the time for all good reasons. But then the son has a career to build, and then he goes to Russia, and then he gets this robo which will take care of his father. But then eventually the father was initially very reluctant to accept this, but then eventually he falls in love with this particular robo, and this robo was part of his life. And then finally, but then the son discovers that unless he destroys this robo might destroy his father. And that's how the story goes. And I think that is perhaps the way, if we don't keep ourselves, or if we don't limit science to what it has to be limited, perhaps it may go to another level. That is probably the message that particular movie gave. And coming to, you know, transhumanism, basically to help people. I was just having a chat with Mr. Anzy, and I had addressed our startup village some time back, and, you know, since I'm from the medical diagnosis industry, the startup entrepreneurs were asking me for ideas. You know, they came up with very beautiful ideas, beautiful companies that are actually working out of our startup villages, and we should admire them. One particular thing that they asked me, and I said, I mean, like, rather, they asked me for an idea, and what I felt was, I asked them, like, see, people, the older generation sitting here, people my age, above my age or slightly below my age, we will probably agree that we never had dialysis centers, or, you know, this kind of dialysis centers that we have now, about 20, 30 years back. So, evidently, our lifestyle, maybe the food intake or our diet, everything is damaging kidneys to a great extent. And that is the reason why these dialysis centers are coming, to rejuvenate the kidney and keep life prolonged. But then I was asking these people, instead of inventing a dialysis machine, can we actually look at some kind of technology wherein the kidneys don't get damaged? Because see, our new lifestyles, our food, our diet, our atmosphere, whatever we call it, is now we have to get tuned to that. So instead of inventing newer machines that can take care of maybe a kidney or a heart that once it is damaged, take care of it. Instead of that, can we find out a technology that will help us not to have these things damaged, and which will actually help us much more, and which we'll have a much better, healthier society. This topic came up to me just because he was telling me about my mouse kidney that was cloned, kept into a human being somewhere in Germany, I believe, and the results was dramatic. But then this is something that I told our startup people a few months back. I think I'll leave you with these thoughts right now, because we have a highly vociferous speaker who's our Vice President and Program Committee Chair said, companies have been transformed because of this gentleman. Although he looks young, I'm sure he is young, but then he's got that wealth of knowledge and experience with him, and I'm sure that we'll learn a lot from him. But once again, I would like to thank our Program Committee Chair for these kind of topics that come to his mind, and these kind of programs that he has been able to bring to us week on week. So thank you, and I would request all of you to congratulate him once again. So with this, I now hand it over to our speaker for the day, Mr. Anzy. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, big thanks to KMA for giving me this opportunity, and thanks to our Algiers uncle for putting me into a different and difficult sport, because this topic is very deep, and 30 minutes is not enough for us to really go deep into this topic. But in the next 30 minutes, I would just to have a little bit of conversation around what is the impact of transhumanism, and what are the different artifacts which are deep in there, right? And especially, I would really like to kind of focus on the leadership aspect, because that's very crucial. The kind of transformation that we are seeing in the industry, the things that we are seeing every day. I think it's extremely important for us, each one of us, to take leadership in the fact. Today we were just having a casual conversation. There is a NASCOM. NASCOM stands for the National Software Product Companies Association. We were just discussing how many of us are using Google. And almost 80% of the people in that group said they are not using Google anymore. Most of them are using ChatGPT, Perplexity, or any of those conversational large language models, right? So there is a big shift which is happening in the industry. It's very easy for any large organization to get disrupted, because the speed of change which is happening at this point of time is very high, right? So I think that's one of the foundational pieces that we really need to look at. The disruption, the kind of speed of change which is happening across the industry. It doesn't matter whether it's a software organization or a manufacturing organization. The kind of disruption which is happening is very fast. So I think what probably from transhumanism we really need to look at is, it's not about who we are. It's all about who we can become, right? I think that's a foundational piece that we really need to look at it. All of us know we are humans, but then the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I think things would be completely different. And for me, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you really look at evolution of human being over the last several centuries, or ever since we came into existence, we had different tools. We had different tools to enhance the kind of skills, right? Rightly, and whatever Vijay mentioned, right? From crafting everything through handwritten notes to having printing press. And now, in today's age, when we have artificial intelligence, things have completely transformed. And anyone who resisted change, we all know, right, we have become obsolete and we are part of the history. And that's exactly which is happening now. And that's why I really wanted to start with the matter of fact saying that technology has always been there. I still remember because I was running the entire cloud transformation for my previous employer, SAP. And this was way back in 2011, 2012. People were really skeptical. Once we have all the software moved to a cloud data center, jobs will be lost. The IT team will not have any more work, right? But fast forward, the number of cloud professionals, right? It's in India alone. It's very, very huge, right? We have the last number which I looked at, we had close to 355,000 cloud professionals in India. So which is a huge growth in terms of the job switching, right? So I think whenever we talk about transhumanism, the biggest challenge that always comes is technology going to replace us? Is technology going to make ourselves outdated? I have a completely different viewpoint, which I believe that's not going to happen. It's really going to augment our capabilities. So that's where the definition of transhumanism comes. Again, to just make it very simple, this is a study of application of technology that enhances our abilities, right? And it doesn't have to be replacing humans, it just enhances our capabilities. It's, as Mr. President told, it actually augments who we are, what we can do, right? And it did not happen today, it happened over several years. I'm completely sure that many of you who are here at least have 2 of these devices with them, right? And you have the mobile, some of you have the smart watches, some of you have AirPods, some of you have smart things with you. And all these devices in every millisecond capture some of the vital information and put us to some of the cloud platforms, right? It could be a Google Cloud, it could be a Microsoft Azure, or it could be an Amazon Cloud, right? And which fundamentally means without you realizing it, you are extending the compute, you are extending this network, you are extending the storage of human capability, right? It's very difficult for each one of you to capture all the data which is coming from your devices and calculate it physically, right? But if you export everything to the cloud, you have an extra compute which is coming, you have an extra storage which is coming, you have an extra network which is coming, which can compute all the information and give you back, right? That's extremely important, right? That is the beginning of transhumanism. It is not something like that it happens in the future, right? It's already happening, and that's exactly the beginning of the transhumanism, where the devices, the system, the software is augmenting you in terms of your capabilities. At the same time, when you really look at transhumanism, right, there are 3 foundational technologies that will redefine in the next 5 to 7 years how the world looks at transhumanism. The first thing is the genetic engineering. How many of you here heard about genetic engineering? Yeah. So we have many use cases. I think Alicia in the UK, she's been cured of leukemia by modifying the genetic sequences. we also had two major surgeries, transplant surgeries. The first one was a heart from a pig being transplanted to a human body, but unfortunately the patient could not last more than 2 months. Recently, I think last year, we had a kidney transplantation from a pig which is genetically modified to a human being at MIT. So these are some other things which are already happening. And at the same time, there is a technology which is called CRISPR. We are just discussing about that. CRISPR, which is underlying technology that most of this genetic engineering is being used, and which helps us to sustain, right? It's more like genetically modifying the DNA sequence so that we can extend, and we can also get rid of some of the anomalies which do exist with respect to our genetic sequences. And it's not just limited to some of these major surgeries. Many of us have lactose intolerance. Many of us have specific mutations which holds us back, and again susceptible for cancer-related disease, some of the cancer strains. So I think we have a huge opportunity where by using CRISPR, we have an opportunity to redefine, re-engineer some of the DNA sequence and then replant a completely different RNA towards that block and enable a completely different human being altogether. I think this is in very advanced stage. There are a lot of new innovations which are happening, and this is one of the foundational pieces of transhumanism. Really looking at what are the different faults associated with the DNA, and again making sure that we can correct on the. The second thing, the brain-computer interfaces. This is already in action. How many of you here knows about Neuralink? Yeah, I think many of you know about it. This is always a conversation, right? I mean, way back when we moved from keypads to a touch screen, we always felt that the touch screen is going to be a much more frictionless user experience or user interface. Then we completely pivoted to voice, because that voice means that's the most frictionless UX. You just talk something to your smartphone or the devices, then everything gets captured and you are able to kind of streamline the conversation and take an action on that. But fast forward, we realize that we don't even need a UX. We can directly link your brain signals to the devices, right? It's already in action. Neuralink has already pivoted and made brain-computer interface much more seamless. That there are many use cases where people are using it who are paralyzed by stroke, etc., who are able to interact with the computer, play games, draft emails, send emails to multiple people. This is already happening. So this is the next big foundational piece for transhumanism, where we are enabling direct communication from your brain to the devices which is around you. And the next one is NextMind. This little old technology, but then this is also something which is very relevant, especially people who are playing games. This directly establishes connection between certain applications and your brain. So both these devices are created for very specific purposes of addressing some kind of a pain point, but the kind of industrial use or the large-scale consumer use for these devices are much more significant, right? So again, you will see in the next couple of years, you will see mainstream adoption of these devices. And almost 3 months back, Apple actually filed a patent for capturing your brain waves using the AirPods and converting that to direct system signals, right? So it's already there. So you don't need to wait for a Neuralink or a NextMind to come. Your individual AirPods, which you are using now, act in the next couple of years could act as a direct communication stream between your devices and your brain. The last and something which is already very prevalent is also the augmentation part. This is where your smart glasses, your VR headsets, everything would come into the play. Many of you may be using it for your gaming purposes. Even I had implemented many of these solutions for many of the customers in my previous role, except one instance is where we had done the implementation for DHL, where we had completely changed the logistics operations. Previously, what used to happen is that you have a package which is coming, you scan it, then all the data goes to the system, right? Now, most of the people in the shop floor are having the smart glasses. You just look at the package, immediately the data is captured in your smart glass, it's updated, and all the details are given, right? Similar use cases in the factory floor, especially large car manufacturers where the different bill of materials are available. You just look at it and it really guides you from which rack you have to pick up the spare parts and how to assemble, right? See, these are real good augmentation technologies which are already there, already in practice. But in the next couple of years, you will see a tremendous adoption of this, especially because of the fact that a lot of large companies are investing heavily on this, and you will see more and more applications being built on smart glasses and VR headset coming into the play. Again, this is where the new landscape is changing significantly, right? With these interventions coming in, you have the genetic modification, re-engineering of DNA, which is happening. The second, which is big stuff, which is coming up, is with respect to your BCI or the brain-computer interface, which is coming in. And the last thing is augmented technologies, your VR headsets or the smart glasses, which provide you deep insights in terms of your surrounding with the context that you're operating, right? And that would completely change the business, how we are operating. I still remember a conversation almost I had two weeks back with an organization where the leader was saying that we don't allow our employees to use ChatGPT, which is absolutely not correct, right? I mean, this is a time where you really need to kind of embrace all the tech which is available to increase the productivity. Not using ChatGPT is not really the solution for it, right? I still remember when we had the OpenAI, the Copilot came into existence way back in 2023. We were one of the very few companies who said, right, at least 50% of our developers will start using Copilot. Because whatever technology which is available at that point of time, we should completely leverage those technologies and augment everyone to do more and kind of enhance our capabilities. I can proudly say that the previous organization that I was with, almost 70% of the developers have Copilot access now, which means that almost a significant amount of time they spend on writing redundant codes or they stack code. Now it's outsourced or given to Copilot or different code generation models, which simplify, which kind of removes redundant work and gives an opportunity to prioritize something else, right? So, again, that's one of the very important topic. All of us need to look at opportunities where we can augment ourselves with new technologies, be it Copilot, be it ChatGPT, be it Perplexity, be it any other large language models which are there. And there are also very industry-specific models which are available. For example, if you are working on carbon accounting, there are large language models which are available to really look at what is the total kind of carbon footprint, how do you do the carbon accounting and things around that, right? So there are huge opportunities where each of your employees, each of your functions in your organization can be augmented with technology, right? So the new business landscape is going to be very crucial, right? You have a workforce which is partly augmented and partly not augmented, right? So you need to find the right balance. How do you make sure that you treat everyone equally? You have also the training platforms which are available, And some of these employees could be remote workers. Some of them could be processing information at large quantities, creating insights in terms of what are the outcomes which can come from your businesses. But it's extremely important as leaders, as organization, to really look at and understand the fact that you are looking at a future workforce which is partly augmented and partly unaugmented. The second big challenge that we are seeing is especially how do you train a large amount of employees. When I say train, it could be a reskilling, it could be skilling something completely different from what they used to be, and again make them productive. Right? This is a huge challenge many organizations at this point of time face, and that's also an opportunity for us to really look at, keep us updated every day in terms of which are the new technologies coming and change it completely. Right? I used to be a developer. I still can write code. Typically, almost 20 years back, the typical life cycle of a programming language used to be 30 to 40 years. But in the last couple of years, it has been reduced to 7 to 8 years. Right? Every new solution that we develop, previous language that we used to be Java. Now we use Go for most of the artifact that we write. Right? And in future, it will be completely different. Right? So for us, it is very important, especially as a workforce. We have to keep ourselves updated in terms of what is the latest tech which is coming in, what are the different stack which is there, and most importantly, we really need to look at how do we speed up their adoption model of technologies inside the organization. The last topic is the mental health and well-being, which we have seen multiple times. I think, especially when you are augmented, right? The clear fact is that the kind of data processing, the kind of decisions that a person who is augmented takes versus someone who is non-augmented is completely different, right? So there are different kind of process which comes into play when you really need to look at the mental well-being of the workforce, right? So there are cases where the total working hours of augmented employees are reduced because the kind of information and processing that some of these people are doing is much more than compared to a non-augmented employees. Right? So many organizations have done it, especially the shop floor workers who have smart glasses. The working hours have been reduced to 4 hours instead of 6 hours or 8 hours, and they take it. So there are different aspirations or different variations coming in terms of mental health and well-being. And if you are leading any of the businesses, or if you plan to have augmented workforce in your organization, this is something, a big consideration that you should do it. This is a very interesting slide because how do you define work, right? I mean, there are 4 pillars here. How do you define work? The currency of work in the new world is primarily going to be based on the cognitive power, not related to the physical labor or the task that individual will be doing. Right? And you don't have enough mechanism at play to really assess one person whether that person is successful in terms of work. This is primarily true for any kind of a large-scale knowledge worker organization, especially some organizations which are involved in IP creation, because what they do at scale is not something which is very transactional, which can be quantified in terms of the work or the physical labor that they do. So, especially many organizations at this point of time have huge amount of freelance gig workers at play who are contributing to the IP. There is a huge conversation in terms of are we really ready yet to kind of look at and assess augmented employees, right? If there is an augmented employee, do you give the credit to that augmentation or that individual, right? So these are very philosophical conversations that all of us need to have in terms of looking at how do we really make sure that you would rightly define the work and help individuals to kind of thrive in the new world. The second aspect is markets, primarily looking at where are your markets, right? There is an interesting study when we started the startup program way back in 2016. We had one of the very first conversational commerce startup, which is called Yellow Messenger at that point of time. And we felt this startup could be a great fit for the India market, and we kind of designed solutions. And then we kind of looked at it, probably this could be something very good for the US market. We started selling in US market. But interestingly, the significant adoption of this software or this startup came from completely different market, which is Southeast Asia. Almost 90% of the revenues came from Southeast Asian markets. So my point here is that when you have a completely different business model, and when you have augmented workforce, when you have an industry which is completely evolving, it's very hard for you to kind of look at this is the specific market that you should target, right? The market size, the boundary of the market also keeps expanding, and it's very important for you to really look at the fact that there is a huge gray area in terms of your market expansion, and you should be prepared for that. The continuous learning, we spoke about it. It's very important for you to really look at how do you kind of create learning journeys for augmented and non-augmented workforce, which is going to be the future workforce for you, and create models, different models of education for the workforce. The last topic is the social structures, regulatory challenges, because especially some of, we were actually discussing within our group in terms of what could be some of the future policies, right, for our workforce. One interesting thought came up was we should have an incentive for employees to re-engineer their DNA, right? If someone wants to really get rid of some of the patterns in their DNA, can we really support as an employer, provide them funding, provide them expenses for their surgery? Can the medical insurance take care of it, kind of a thing, right? Because that's going to be the norm, because the new social structures where people really would like to re-engineer their DNA and kind of make sure that it's every day you become better compared to the previous version of yourself, right? So these are some of the, if you are setting up a business for the future, and if you are going to have augmented and non-augmented workforce, this is the future canvas that you are looking at. Again, the only thing that you could do is primarily embrace change and innovation. Right? Every day that you do stuff, you think that whatever you are building at this point of time is going to be disrupted in the next couple of years. Doesn't matter whether you are building a large new software stack or if you are building a product for a very specific market. Be very clear that it's going to be disrupted in the next couple of years. And again, continuous innovation, full agile method of development is going to be the key for any kind of innovation that we are doing. The second thing, enhancing human capabilities is going to stay. Every opportunity, look at your organization, look at the people that you work with, see the opportunity to enhance their capabilities with any kind of technology, be it any of the large language models, or it could be tools, smart glasses, augmented reality, or it could be any kind of DNA modification. This is going to happen in future. In future, when I say in the future, is not very far. It could be the next 5 to 6 years. This would be reality. And please support, and that's the only way you could grow. The last and the most important topic is primarily looking at ethical consideration, right? I'm sure that there are a lot of conversations happening on how some of the large language models are trained. There was also a very recent conversation that we had in our team we really wanted to create a kind of a unique brand name for one of the new initiatives which was coming. And we reached out to almost 16 to 17 different people in the industry to give the names. And in 15-20 minutes, we started getting the names. The interesting fact was that all the names were almost the same. Because what happened was everyone was using ChatGPT and Perplexity, and then they were giving us the feedback. So that's also large peril that we are looking at, because the large language model should not normalize your creativity, right? It should only enhance what you are good at, and you should never substitute that platform for your creativity, right? That's extremely important. That's one of the really interesting conversation that we are having, right? Are these large language models prompting you to think the way they are supposed to? No, we should not allow that to happen, right? We should really make sure that the human creativity, the innovation that we carry, the kind of spark that we carry are accelerated by these platforms, not the other way around. Right? So that's very important, because when you have a billion population, right? If you create a large language model and the underlying data set is a billion population from India, and then you train something, then the insights will come only very specific to the general average of that data set. Your individual specific detailing of conversations, data insights will not come forth from that. So it's very important for us to really look at from that perspective. What's the kind of data that you are looking at? What's the kind of data set that you use to train some of these models? And based on that, the inferences have to be made. And even if you have a large workforce, even if you are building your own market, even if you are building your own products, it's extremely important for you to have that kind of a depth in terms of what is the kind of data that you will be operating. What are the different ethical considerations that you need to have? Whether I should have full insights in terms of the genomics of your employees, or there should be a boundary that we should really look at it. These are some of the ethical consideration as an organization we need to really look at, and collectively this is something that the entire industry is looking at. Again, as I mentioned, this 30 minutes I'm just really looking at having that conversation. There is no right or wrong. This is just a perspective of where it would go towards in the future. And the biggest thing that each one of us really need to look at is have that conversation. How can I adopt open technologies? How can I really look at emerging technologies? Can I put it to use? And sometimes when you create large movements or large industries, it needs so much of collective power, right? I mean, if you really look at some of the startups who are building sub-10-minute delivery, which is happening in India across multiple of QCs, we call it QCs, which is quick commerce. They are not trying to sell you an item at a discounted rate. What they are trying to do is change your behavior. These QC organizations do not want you to go to a large supermarket, stock your item, keep an inventory, right? What they really want you to do is change the behavior, right? Sometimes when you have to change the behavior, it takes a significant amount of investment, right? I still remember the days when Swiggy, Zomato, everyone came, right? When you see a specific industry is being created, there are some of these conditions which you will see. You will see a large amount of capital which is being invested in a specific vertical, right? When you see the food aggregators, everyone came together. All the food aggregators came together and really changed the way it has operated. Then when all the e-commerce sites, right? When e-commerce came to India, you see all the e-commerce companies came together to create that market. Because if you have to create an industry, if you have to create a market, it needs a significant capital investment. So that's something that you always need to really look at, because it's a behavior change. It's a change in terms of how a specific feature or the product is being used. Because very simple example like iPads or airports, right? Airport is close to 148 billion business at this point of time. Before that, there were devices, earphones were there, and wireless earphones were there. But then it started with making you have seamless conversation, which is backed by proprietary technologies. But the next iteration is something beyond, right? Airports will have an option of sensing your brain signals and directly wiring it to your devices and processing it, right? So if you look at any product which is happening in the market at this point of time, it's an incremental innovation coupled with a very disruptive future innovation which is happening, right? And that's something that you should always look out for. There is a huge amount of market forces which are playing together to create a very specific industry, a very specific domain, and which needs a very collective power. And that's currently happening, and just a matter of time that you will see a completely remodeled, reimagined world which is coming in the next 5 to 6 years. And again, as I told you, right, as business leaders, as people who are running the businesses, you should really look at how do we think a new tool can help us work better or smarter, right? I think it's a very interesting conversation. You always need to look at, even as individuals, right? Even if you are a student, you really need to look at an option of checking whether am I a better person compared to yesterday? Did I learn something new? Did I use any other technologies or tools to better myself? I think this is a conversation every day you need to have, and this is something that, especially in large organizations, we do at kind of a very systematic level, looking at what are the different tools and systems that can simplify employees at scale. Again, we all talk about artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and coupled with business innovations. I think it didn't start yesterday. It didn't start today, right? It was happening at different paces, and we never realized it's happening, right? So for me, the transhumanism is not something that we should be surprised, but this is something that we should all embrace together. It's already in motion at multiple levels. As I briefly spoke about it, we have our own limitations in terms of our compute, in terms of our storage, our memory, and we have a huge opportunity to enhance or augment that with the infinite amount of compute which is available through systems, through networks. And I don't think we can shy away from that, right? And that's going to be the future. And I'm sure that we all will have newer opportunities where we could use our creativity at a different level and length. But again, it will be a coexistence where 70% of the processing comes from probably machines, and 30% of creativity and innovation come from us, right? That's going to be the future, and that's the message that I really wanted to leave you with. And again, if we are just looking at the numbers, almost 70% to 75% of the population in the world will have some kind of a experience with any of the digital assistants in their day-to-day life. And certainly we will never know it, but that's a kind of world that we are living in, and it's going to change. And as I mentioned, 70% of the capabilities would come from machines, which are more redundant, which are more repeatable tasks, and 30% of the work will be done by us in terms of defining the future. I'll take a pause here. I know it's not a very super interesting topic to prolong, but I'm absolutely open for any kind of questions, comments, any kind of conversations around this. Thank you.
Anzy.
I have two questions.
Yes.
First one is regarding the neural network, neural link thing which you have talked about. So it was said that the chipsets would be able to understand your brain waves, right?
Yeah.
So what if there comes a time when you would be able to give information to your brain, or maybe like give knowledge into your brain? In a world like that, how do you think the getting into competitive business schools would look like? What would be the criteria? How the things will change?
Yeah, I have a completely different perspective on education system. Completely, I didn't share that because in just couple of years, right? I mean, probably I would have a combination of a large language model. I would pick. I need an NIT plus a Stanford plus something else. Give me a model, right? I would have someone like that, which is more of an artificial agent. I can have a conversation. I can have theoretical conversation with that. So that's something that I kind of believe in because 2 weeks back I was at Stanford. I had this. I met three of the students there who are working on similar fields, and it's just a matter of time that you will have so many SLMs or LLMs which are developed, which are very fine-tuned for very specific niche area, right? Where you don't need a human being, but rather you have an agent which is already trained on a large data set, which gives me an input. Right? That's one part. Again, to your point, this is feasible, right? Currently, you are only looking at capturing the signals and putting it back. It's very important that there are cases where people are blind, they are not able to see, right? You are giving the signal back to the brain to visualize things, right? People who are not able to see, have any kind of view in terms of their eyes, the neural link chips could, the possibility is that they could simulate the same kind of an experience to the people. And there are different flavors of that already happened, right? People who lost the smell sensation. There are already projects where people could actually simulate the specific smells through brain waves, which is already happening. So it's just a matter of time, from my perspective, that you will have a two-way communication.
My question was regarding what differentiate that persons who getting into higher end schools and all. Like now there is this ability to give knowledge to a person without spending enough time studying something.
Yeah.
So what is the criteria for differentiating?
Yeah, I think I do not have. So again, if you have higher IQ, then probably the base level will enhance with the augmentation which is happening, right? So currently, most of the augmentation platforms are focusing on putting that missing delta. What you're talking about is that missing delta plus an extra for someone who is an inferior to become an extra Stanford graduate is what you are looking at, right? So probably it would happen. I mean, again, these technology have very deep impact in terms of how human capability can be enhanced, right? So it could happen. There is absolutely no double thoughts on it.
I do have one more question.
Yeah.
It was regarding that you guys implementing Copilot in your workforce. So as someone who believes that the integrity of a team comes from communicating with each other. Now there is this ChatGPT or other AI models which actually could solve, without communicating with the team, you could actually ask questions to the generative models and they could get the answer. What would be the mental health of, what would be the total strength of the team would look like?
Again, this is a very deep conversation. As I mentioned, I'm also involved in the startup world. There are conversations where some of the Silicon Valley VCs, instead of hiring 8 engineers, they hire 4 Copilot. They take four Copilot licenses, then they employ 2 product managers, then software is done, right? Fundamentally, you need to look from a point of view in terms of the future, not from what you're doing now, right? So at this point of time, all of us will be writing codes, but that doesn't mean that in future you will continue to do that, right? You have to shift your perspective from writing user stories or looking at what are the different business use cases and giving that to the ChatGPT or any code generation models to write the code, right? So my feedback is that it's an ability for you to shift what you're doing at this point of time. Just like what has happened in the cloud, the transformation to the cloud, right? There are huge amount of IT folks who were making the legacy data centers, right? People felt that once they shift to the cloud, these people will be completely unemployed and they will not be able to do anything. But things have changed. So the same way, the people who are writing code at this point of time need to think twice. Should I really write the code or should I do something else, right? Probably I should really look at creating more higher value tasks in terms of designing user stories, looking at system design, how do you design the system completely, and give the writing part to the Copilot when you have the code writing models. It's going to happen, it's happening multiple places.
But the people are not interacting with the other.
Who said people are not interacting? There are multiple tools available, right? We discuss of creating something, any new software, right? As product managers, we come together and discuss what could be the future model. And there is a use case. I mean, since I feel you are from the computer science background, these are the different system entities which are available. This is how the interactions will work. Then we sign off that discussion. Then give it to the code generation model to design a software. It's happening. There are companies who have come out straight in the market said that, but in 2029 onwards, I'm not hiring a software engineer. You can just Google. There are large companies out there in the market say that we are not going to hire a software engineer by 2029. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, this is a very deep topic. And
It is very deep. Yeah.
And you had 30 minutes to distill it. You did a really great job with that. Thank you. Unfortunately, I have a very deep question for you. I'm sure you know Ray Kurzweil,
Yes.
who's an ex-scientist at Google. He predicted that we will reach
Singularity.
Yes, singularity
Yeah.
and longevity
Yeah.
by 2029,
Yeah.
which basically means that from 2029 onwards, we extend human life expectancy by 1 year every year, right? So now my question is sort of philosophical, like how do we, how does this alter our understanding of human identity, our sort of purpose in life, and the value of life, if this is sort of reaching towards immortality, what is that, what is the philosophical sort of framework we would have to adopt as a society? To sort of, this is a pretty deep question.
It is very deep. I mean, that's why Ray came up with 2 books, not just 1 book. The first one was Singularity is Near. The second one was Nearer, right? When the artificial intelligence came, he wrote 1 more book. But again, my fundamental point of view, right? Did AI reach consciousness or not? At this point of time, not, right? Probably once it reaches, the complete world will change. But again, I have my own viewpoints in terms of artificial intelligence reaching consciousness. It's not that easy. While the transformers models have helped us to paralyze the generation of neural networks and doing encode and decode, and again supervised learning, but I'm still not fully convinced that different AI models will have consciousness. Till that point of time, I don't think that singularity is there. And again, the world is also divided. Again, if you Google, you will find pro and against it. But till multiple AI models reach consciousness, humans will be still in the game. But it will, reaching the consciousness, it will take some time because again, it's not very fast that they will go. Yes.
I want to thank you for your very futuristic talk. It's very futuristic. I want your thoughts on two different issues. The first one or two slides you showed this in garment devices, which are being used. With respect to that, I have been thinking in my mind for the past couple of years, why can't we have a bloodless glucometer like oximeter, which will be a benefit the large amount of diabetic population in the world. Second is a heart pendant. It is well known that before a heart attack, the heart gives out troponin 1 and other enzymes, which can capture this and alert the person towards a heart attack 1 hour earlier.
Yeah.
This is my first question.
Sure.
Second question, you mentioned about all AIs except DeepSeek and Deep Drive.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on DeepSeek and Deep Drive at this moment in time?
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I'll start with the DeepSeek part. See, the fundamental belief I think all of us need to. I mean, this is not my words, but nonetheless, whom I really admire in terms of how he has transformed India. AI models are going to be commoditized, right, at multiple levels. So, just like all your hyperscalers, the cloud platforms, where maybe Google Cloud, Azure, and Ali Cloud, and different clouds, right? It's the same way you will have many of the large language models commoditized. It will just become a commodity. What would definitely be interesting is that the emergence of a lot of small language models, right? We call it SLM, which is very industry specific. For example, if you are running a sustainability or carbon accounting practice, right? There is a huge amount of IP and data that you have, and you have a small language model which is trained on that data set, which is very unique, and you retain that IP. That's going to be very, very crucial. But if you are really looking at large language models, which all the data set, everything, it's going to be, most of these organizations is going to be made it open source. The DeepSeek also made it open source. It's not closed. Llama, which is Meta's large language model, is open source. ChatGPT is the one who is holding back. But then, because the moment you need to get the models trained on large data sets, people need access to how that information is being processed, how the model is getting created, the different tensor files, the regression analytics, everything you need to have access to it. So from that perspective, I think it doesn't matter whether it's DeepSeek or any other large language model, it's going to be one or the other commodity in the future. Now, the DeepSeek, there are also a lot of controversies, right? Especially the distinction, the reason why they said that it's a much more efficient model. There are definitely software efficiencies that they have achieved, but they mentioned that the number of GPUs, which is a graphical processing unit, needed to train these models were much lesser. But the recent investigation has found out that many of the GPUs of NVIDIA were shipped through Singapore to China, and probably a reduction of 30 to 35% is the only thing which is there, right? I mean, again, that's a very different conversation. But you will see this, today it's DeepSeek, tomorrow it's something else. You will see this kind of repeating every now and then. New models will come, new efficient and large language models will come, and it's going to stabilize after a point of time. And that's something I'm not really too much worried about it, because after a point of time, you will have a couple of models which are available, which are open sourceable. You can use it, train your data set and use it, customize it. But what will be very interesting is that if you are running a vertical business, vertical SaaS, for example, you are part of a large supply chain practice, you have a very deep industry know-how. Or if you are in the oil excavation business, then probably you have a completely different process. Or if you are in the sustainability practice, you have a very different methods and data sets which are available. Or if you are in terms of retail business, you have a very different data sets available. And if you can create small language models around the data set that you have, and that IP will belong to you, and that would be something that each of the
Should
organizations.
India focus on this?
India has a huge focus on that. Nandan also very clearly mentioned that we should not focus on large language models, rather small language models is something which will be really interesting for us. That's part. The third question that you mentioned, the first two questions I forgot.
It's about the bloodless glucose.
Yeah, I think interestingly, there are, especially the continuous glucose monitor, it's still connected to your blood. And especially almost 2 months back when I was in the US, there are multiple devices which are in the market at this point of time. There are CGMs with insulin attached as a patch. I don't know how many of you have seen that. It will sense the glucose levels, and if it goes below a specific range, it will infuse insulin to the vein. In just a matter of time, the same can be replicated if you see that there is a cardiac arrest, which your Apple Watch is anyway going to sense it. If you have a patch which has any kind of medicine, which is for removing the blocks or anything related to aspirin or any of the medicines, in just a matter of time, you will have similar things coming in. Because see, I think the interesting fact.
I think my sister has that connected onto her end.
Yeah.
I'm a non-diabetic, but I wanted to expand. I'm a nutritionist basically. So I'm a non-diabetic, so I wanted to see that how which food increases on a non-diabetic,
Yeah.
the blood glucose levels, how it increases. And I wanted to do a study with the diabetic. And so my husband is a diabetic, so I placed one on my husband and one I placed on myself. I'm non-diabetic, so same food we had, and I was looking into it the blood glucose levels, how the variance is there in it.
So this machine is there, automatic.
It's already there in the market. But is a
But it draws blood.
no,
That
it
is
doesn't
a-
draw blood. It's just a small.
Tick.
I think he has shown the
Yeah.
picture also.
Yeah.
It's a small thing which is placed on your arm,
Yeah.
and it can be sensed with your mobile phone. If you have MSD, you can with the mobile phone, or they have a sensor also. They do give the sensor, but now it's a unique market, so it's quite expensive. For 14 days, they charge us nearly 5,000 rupees.
5,000.
There's only one company is marketing right now in
Yeah.
India.
There is only one company who manufactures also. Again, this is the fundamental issue that we are facing, especially the Kerala. We have so much of talent available. We can definitely create a device like this. And I'll give you a very simple use case. And especially the market of fever, right? Especially the Dodo, the paracetamol tablets. They are making almost 200-500 crores of money every year managing for the temperature, right? You can design a very simple patch which captures the temperature and relay that to your mobile device. We don't have a product at this point of time. This is something, a use case which can be developed by India, anyone in Kerala, right? We get 3 or 4 kids from the school can come together and devise a patch and market it. There are so much of opportunities out, especially in the wearable sector. We can replicate, we can create something new from here, and then the sad part is that we are focusing on something not with. We are discussing about AI, large language models, and things around that, but the action on ground on wearables and as Mr. President mentioned, especially on diagnostics, we could, especially in Kerala, we could do a tremendous amount of stuff. It's not being done. And again, the next iteration of the CGM, what happens is that currently we have to put it next to the CGM device, right? New devices are, you don't need a near field communication. NFC is not needed. You can keep your mobile anywhere. It will automatically do a push notification and alert you on that. And there are many cases where people heart attack, and your Apple Watch alerted it, sent SOS, got picked up by ambulance, and everything cleared, right? So
How does the Apple Watch capture?
It has a sensor, three optical sensors which looks at your patterns of heartbeat and then senses whether there is a change in the heartbeat sequence and then do that. The latest version of the Apple Watch, you can take an ECG also. Yeah, so it just, see, a lot of things are under research at this point of time or in the early beta stages, which is what I told the patent that Apple filed for airports, primarily sensing your brain signals and directly communicating to your mobiles. Right? That's still in the beta stage, but there are so many innovations which are coming in, and the market is huge. We have huge talent and workforce available in India. We can really look at it and create products.
Okay, so thank you for the session. So my question is like this is the period of technological advancement and other brain-computer interfaces. So in future there will be more advancement, but it may lead to the violation of a person's privacy. So how can we deal with that?
Yeah, I think institutions need to come up with very strong data privacy and rights, especially in the context of people becoming digital. We have a DPP. I don't know how many of you read the DPP guidance from Government of India. It's fairly decent, I would say. Any data belongs to you. If someone needs to access, you need to give explicit permission to do that. And if that doesn't happen, you can challenge it. But are we really enforcing it? Do we have, all of us, do we have the kind of awareness or education in terms of what is the true data? Where is your person data lying? We don't have the kind of systems at this point of time. So that's why I really don't, I don't know whether you have seen it. Almost 2 weeks back, I wrote an article in Deccan Herald, which is one of the newspapers, talking about how the education system also need to change, right? We don't talk about data privacy, we don't talk about things, right? We talk about the fence revolution, which really any large language model at this point of time could answer, right? So I wrote about an article where we thought system design should be something that to be taught to the children at this stage, because that's going to be very crucial for anyone who is born at this point of time to understand how does the different system interact in the new world, right? Now all of us are very clueless. Where does your data lie? How does systems operate? How does systems communicate? What are the pitfalls? When you take a picture on your phone, is it really lying in your phone's camera? Not really, right? There are tens of replicas which will go all around and then multiple data centers, right? Again, that data centers will have a backup, will have another satellite data centers which will go. So the moment you take a picture, you always think that the photos in your hard drive, right? It doesn't happen that way, right? So every newborn baby, every new person who is going to school or education needs to understand the fundamentals of how our systems operate, how does the system scale, and that's going to be very crucial in terms of answering your questions. Then it becomes, and then you should ask the government to have more clauses in the data privacy and again, specifically on the personal data protection, right? We are still not there because of a lot of structural issues, because we have a huge software products development companies operating out of India, right? The moment we become very extreme in terms of data privacy and personal data protection, there will be a ripple effect coming from the customers of those countries also, right? So we are having a fine balance, but if you really look at who is actually doing good, the European Union is having a very strong data protection and privacy laws at this point of time. There is so much to learn from those guys, but again, the fundamental issue is not with the government, it's with all of us. Our education system, we are still not capable enough to mold our new generation in terms of the realities that we are living in at this point of time.
You talked about the Neuralink, like that chip. It's really connected to the brain.
Yeah.
So it may lead to the privacy leakage, right?
Any Amazon Echo device that in your rooms, it's listening, right? Your phone, the Siri, it's listening. It's listening. So do not see it as just a disconnected piece. It's happening everywhere. Every conversation that you're doing is there. And there are protocols which is called voice over IP. There are some telecom players who are operating on that full data, and these records are available.
I think the question is in a world of brain-machine interfaces, what you are talking about.
Yeah.
There's no question. You can't even have privacy at all, isn't it? It can be interpreted anywhere.
Yeah.
There's no chance of having privacy.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
the point I think she's trying.
Yeah, I completely understand. That's exactly what I mentioned also. If you have an Amazon Echo or a mobile phone here, every
voice, but
yeah.
here your brain is going somewhere.
Yeah.
Your brain is getting.
Yeah, there the private conversations are happening. Here is full unexposed, right? So the only way is that you have an access to the kind of messages which is going through and block it or it's absolutely a completely different world for us. Yeah. So, yeah.
Do you think that private players can offer privacy as a commodity in future, where we are connected as human beings,
Yeah.
but private players come like we have VPN services now?
Yeah.
So we have VPN services now. So do you think in the distant future, privacy becomes a commodity that people sell as a service?
It could be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now also they are selling.
Yeah, actually that will become the most expensive commodity in your transhuman world.
Privacy as a service. Yeah. Probably we'll see how we define privacy and what are the data sets which qualify to be privacy. But again, I always say, we are kind of overestimating the power of AI in the short term, but we are completely underestimating its impact on a very long term. We don't really know how this could shape up, right? Because huge amount of data sets, huge amount of models, huge amount of systems, graphical processing units which are available to fine tune and create the thing, right? It has huge opportunities also. I also wrote an article on this because it can also create a world which is more inclusive. The perspective I share is that there are people who are autistic, there are people who are having ADHD. Currently, if you really look at the World Wide Web, right, the web as it is see, it's mostly static. It's fine-tuned it's a common experience for everyone. It doesn't matter if I'm an ADHD person, I have the same experience. If I'm an autistic person, I have the same experience. If I'm probably an introvert, it's the same experience. But you have an opportunity to have private large language models, which are plugged into your browser, which is fine-tuned for the experience that I need. And whenever the web page is getting rendered, probably as someone who is ADHD, I would really like to have less animations and things, more of a text or more of a very basic explanations. I can recreate the entire experience through that private large language model. The same for a person who is a colorblind. It doesn't matter whether it comes in multiple colors. He or she sees only in grayscale, right? So the large language model could stimulate and give. So again, there are a lot of positives for AI, but at the same time, you also have a large amount of open concerns which are still not addressed, right? And again, OpenAI, right? No one knows what is the kind of data set that have trained. It's still not very clear. Yes, the general intuition is that the model is trained on everything which is available in the web, right? They use crawlers to train it. But many of the information which is out there in the crawlers and web pages are not really public information. There are also private information which is available. So again, these are conversations which are very deep. No one has really have a very clear perspective on these topics at this point in time.
I think that would be the last question. Please sit down because this could go on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Anzy, for this wonderful talk. And I would request Dr. Anna Joseph, our secretary, to give a word of thanks.
Good evening all. Indeed, another wonderful session to the journey to the future is what we looked into. Lot of thoughts, lot of process, and it's only thing that so much of things are changing. But it brought me to this thought process of what Greek philosopher Heraclitus, who lived from 535 to 475 BC, told that change is the only constant. So change is happening, change will happen and it will move on. The technology will come. But then in the entire thought process, transhumanism, the way it was covered, thank you, and for that wonderful lecture, Mohammed Anzy, for that wonderful lecture. Indeed, it is a bit scary also for privacy issues, what is going to happen in the future, but then it all has to evolve. Still, we have to capture a lot of things. The US is considered to be the hub of everything, but they were not able to control a fire, which happened. So we talk about a lot of things, lot of everything changing, everything engineered to precision, but still in the basics there is a lot of things to correct. And then every generation always feels that the new generation is going to change everything, and this is happening for centuries and say billions of years, which is getting evolved. And look at the wonderful process. We are in a universe which rotates round across globally, moving with a force of attraction. And we are all comfortable staying, thinking that we are the creators of the world. But then look at the Almighty, what transhumanism He has created. He is a wonderful species of human being. Without any software at that time, He can make motions, things, make us things, make the connection, joints, everything so perfect. So that is the one, the greatest creator of the world is our own creator, is what I wanted to share with this focus gathering. Very interesting session. Thank you very much for that. And I would like to thank all of you who have joined us here. We have few items coming up, and initially I would like to thank Mr. Navadip John for the prayer song, which he starts with a prayer dedicated to this program. Thank you very much for doing that. And once again, I would like to congratulate Ajay for bringing the person from his family, and I think his family is so talented, so rich of knowledge that we don't have a such person. And I wonder who, when I became in his post, from where should I get? But I think I will again consult Ajay to get the people for the same. And once again, our dynamic president, Bibu, told the story of Android Kunyapan, who started, and when in that movie, it's that interesting part that the technology goes wrong somewhere and it creates a lot of problem. So it's always, every technology has got its own challenges, or now the Waymo transferring the systems of travel, where there are so many cases getting registered now. There are so many issues happening. It crosses the red light, then nobody knows whom they have to charge. And we had a wonderful talk last week from Nevin Philip on this. So these are so many issues happening. But again, we have a lot of program coming up. KMA week is going, management week is to come in the next week, and we have a session on transforming aviation industry in Kerala for global connectivity by Mr. Harish Moidin Kuti, which is going to come on next Friday on 14th, and on 15th Saturday we have India's growth story, the next chapter and BSC's contribution. Mr. Sundararaman Ramamurthy is going to talk on that. That will be at Vivanda Ernakulam. And then we have the K.T. Chandi Memorial Lecture, Management in the Age of Transformation by Dr. Sajid Gobinath, Professor IIM Calicut, and remembrance by Mr. Venugopal Singh Govind, Chairman Bharatiya Vidya. So there are a lot of activities lined up, and I know I would like to thank each and every one of you who joined us. And I always, as I will say, we have been given with a lot of data for us to think, and that is what these talks are all about, which inspires us to move us to the next level. Thank you very much for coming in and joining us. May I have the pleasure of asking our president to hand over a memento to the speaker of the day, Mohammed Anzy, to bring us a wonderful session in this regard. So once again, thank each and every one of you who have joined in. And there is a small similarity. We have some the same alumni. I am also a PhD from MIT Calicut, so from the university. Thank you all once again, and let's stand for the national anthem.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जय गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जन गण मन